Hello and welcome to Interpersonal Communications for the Professionals, a podcast where we talk about the latest and greatest of communication in a business environment. I'm Olivia Kruger and I have an exciting lineup for you today. We just passed election season and we saw an influx of young voters. Baby boomers have always held the majority of the voting booths, but the Atlantic projected by 2024, millennials and Gen Z will have an equal share in the booths. By the next general election in 2028, the two younger generations will outweigh the older generations. You might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with business communication? Well, funny you should ask, because this is also an indication that Generation Z is making its way into the productivity of society, the workforce. This leads me into today's compelling topic, how the integration of Generation Z, the Zoomers, will and does affect the interpersonal communication environment within organizations. Today, I'm joined by four experts, the brilliant Mattea Fiegen, Perras, Alecea Mendoza, and Raegan Beck. These women are specialists in their field and have put together extensive research for us today to have a great discussion about Zoomers. By the end of this podcast, you should know how Gen Z's outlook affects an organization's communication, ability to integrate, work culture, and technology. We will begin with Fiegen discussing Generation Z's approach to the workplace and how that will impact an organization's communication strategies and environments. Mattea, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, well, we are the lucky ones to have you here today.
Why, thank you. So, as she said, I'll be focusing on Generation Z's outlook on work and how it will affect an organization's communication environment. When it comes to working, Generation Z has been characterized as hardworking and motivated, that we value skill development and self-improvement. CSP states that 76% of us describe ourselves as responsible for our own careers. We take our education and our future seriously and in our own hands. There are actually categories that have been made that describe possible ways that one could conceptualize work. Some of those are as a curse or just an unpleasant activity that allows you to do the things that you enjoy. When looking to see where Gen Z falls, I look towards the categories of freedom, personal fulfillment, and identity. Work is something that allows us to achieve independence and success. It gives us an understanding of who we are. There's also the organizational orientations of Gen Z, which is often that of upward mobiles and achievement. These two identifications talk about showing up every day and giving it your all for yourself and for your company. Generation Z's concept of work and organizational orientation speaks to their drive and passion for what they do, which is an asset to employers. But thanks to being born with the technology at our fingertips, Gen Z also knows opportunities that are before us and aren't willing to settle. To quote BBC Work Life, Generation Z wants it all and is willing to walk away if we don't get it.
The gig economy.
Exactly. The new generation of workers doesn't just look for a job. They look for a job with a good environment, good values, and good people. As much as employers interview us, we are interviewing the employers. Salary may be the first thing we notice, but Gen Z values work-life balance, mental health benefits, the flexibility of working when and where you want, and companies that invest in developing working in a diverse and inclusive environment. BBC Work Life reports that 88% of Gen Z wants mental health days, 77% want a company that supports diversity, and 74% would opt for a hybrid or remote work. I think that there is nothing wrong with Generation Z wanting the things that they do. I think this will just be another change that will become a societal norm. Gen Z's outlook on work will definitely be changing the organization's communication environment, and I would argue for the better.
Yes, we aren't going to let ourselves get walked over.
And if the employer wants to keep us, they're going to have to give us an incentive to retain us.
This brings us into when they retain us, how does Gen Z integrate into the workplace? Something Perras will talk more about. Ella, take it away.
Thank you, Olivia. To add to what Mattea has said, every year we are going to see more and more Gen Zs enter the workplace. With that, we are destined to see some conflicts arise between the generational age gap. Many Gen Zs struggle with working in groups or with others and struggle asking others for help. Unlike Generation Z, most older generations like baby boomers, Gen X, and even millennials rely on their communication skills within the workplace to solve problems, yet are a lot more hesitant to change than young people. An example of a disagreement that may occur in the workplace could be the use of different technology and software, and how it is continuing to evolve and change. For older generations, the change may be a lot more difficult to adapt to, as they could be used to systems they have been using for years. like the debate between Word and Google Docs. Many companies are changing technology to adapt to the changing times. It has been a trend to change from Word to Google Docs as the younger generation knows a lot more about it and finds it easier to use. This is just one example of the many conflicts that could occur between the generational gap within a company. It is important to keep in mind the strengths and weaknesses of everyone in a work environment to cooperate together, complete work, or solve problems.
Is it weird that I prefer to use Word and Google Docs?
They definitely have different capabilities. This isn't about Word and Google Docs.
Those who get it. Those who don't. Well, thank you, Ella. And on to culture with Alecea. Alecea, you take it away.
Thanks, Olivia. Culture definitely plays a major role in a good workplace. If a work environment is good on paper but is failing because of certain individuals, then something needs to change. One problem we face today is the ability to listen to a person's problem and being able to find a solution if attainable. An example is people of different religions trying to find time to do their daily prayers. Cultural discrimination has been a major problem in the past, and I believe that Gen Z is on the verge of fixing this problem. Gen Z is the most populous and diverse generation yet, and we can definitely use that to our advantage in the workforce. In fact, we have started to change norms already. Gen Z is already known to have the highest expectations of work, with a focus on mental health, cultural differences, and inclusion. Our values have shifted more from the quantity of work to the quality of work and the individuals doing it.
Would you say that Generation Z is more tolerant?
I think it is even a step further to say that Generation Z is more respectful. We obviously have our constitutional rights protected under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which provides protection of the religious accommodations in the workplace. However, this doesn't mean that discrimination doesn't occur. Employers express the difficulty to accommodate people who fall into this category. This has been reflected in the past with the bare minimum, and in return has created an uncomfortable work environment, which then reduced the quality of work for individuals. For example, employers of older generations tend to find ways around accommodating these needs, like combining prayer and lunch breaks into one time period. This is a problem because people of the Muslim faith need to pray at least 5 times a day. With this being said, Gen Z has a better appreciation for neutrality, compromise, and understanding, and will help a workplace become the best version of itself. As Fiegen said, Generation Z is less tied to their workplace and more willing to stand up for others. However, it is important to acknowledge the importance of the older generation in paving the way for this mentality.
So are we talking like the Martin Luther Kings to the Gloria Steinems, or is that too far back?
Those are influential people who have the base.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much, Alecea Mendoza. I'm glad to be a part of a generation that is continuously pushing forward in social equality and inclusion, despite having the name of Zoomers. Raegan, can you believe this is how our generation will be remembered?
You know, Olivia, COVID-19 has thrown a lot of curveballs, but also Gen Z has grown up in a time where disruption and change are the norms. Hell, we were literally born in the digital age.
I would say we are very tech savvy. I'm very thankful that I know how to change my Wi-Fi code so it's not 13 digits long like my grandfather. Well, speaking of COVID and tech, Raegan, what does that mean for Generation Z?
I want to talk about the integration of work from home and the communication that comes with working from home. There was a study done from working from home, and 59% of workers said that their job can be done mainly at home, and the majority of them said that they were working from home before COVID had even happened. An obvious benefit of working from home is that there's no commute time in the morning or evening.
Yeah, those gas prices right now, man.
Okay, well, speaking of grandpa...
Okay, back on topic.
Anyway, there's been a number of workers who have said that they're able to be more productive at home away from chatty colleagues. Mark Zuckerberg said that working from home has allowed him to be more productive at work. He's able to spend more time with his family, which makes him happier. Before Zoom and Skype, researchers at Human Computer Interaction Institute at Carnegie Mellon said that collaboration at a distance remains substantially harder to accomplish than collaboration with members of a work group or collected. Since this study, researchers acknowledged some of the potential benefits of working from home. Email, answering machines, and computer bulletin boards could help eliminate the inconvenience of organizing in-person meetings with multiple people at the same time. Communication while working from home may look like sending emails, video chats, and phone calls. While in the office, you can talk to a coworker and get a response immediately, versus waiting for a reply on an email that could take hours. Video communication allows face-to-face conversations, and many employees spread out across different locations. This also allows employees to collaborate and get to know each other face-to-face online. Poor communication will lead to unmotivated and ill-informed staff, which leads to employees questioning their ability to do their job. It's essential to keep everyone involved and have meetings in order to keep everyone on the same page.
The beauty of hybrid work.
Right. Coming to the office maybe once a week while accomplishing work in the more effective way for you.
I mean, I personally know I work better in bed, and everyone definitely has a different learning style.
For sure. In interpersonal communication, when accomplishing and learning tasks, people learn one of three ways: verbally, non-verbally, and visually. By giving employees considerable autonomy, they can customize to their learning styles. Those who learn verbally have the ability to put together sentences and use words correctly to understand directions. Nonverbal learners and visual learners have often used signs, directions, and diagrams to help them understand a task.
So what are some examples of these learning techniques?
An example of verbal communication would be working from a computer, working with a coworker, and having to explain how to do something over the phone or video chat. An example of nonverbal communication would be using eye contact when talking to somebody to show that they have your full attention. And lastly, a visual example would be having to do a presentation using a pie chart or looking at a work schedule. Another visual example, this one's specific for working from home, would be a Zoom meeting that you were able to show your screen in the meeting so the coworker can have a visual idea.
Brilliant explanation, Raegan. I feel like I've learned a lot more from you and just everyone here in this podcast. And thank you for taking the time to talk with me today on Interpersonal Communications for the Professionals, a podcast where you talk about the latest and greatest of communication in a business environment. I'm Olivia Kruger, and I've had the pleasure to talk with Mattea Fiegen, Perras, Alecea Mendoza, and Raegan Beck. We should now know a little bit more about how Gen Z's outlook affect an organization's communication, ability to integrate work culture, and technology. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.